And we are live. I'm really excited to have Ashley Harwood joining us this week for episode 26, which is called Extroverts. See if I can speak. Move Over Extroverts, Networking for Introverts. Ashley, this is sort of your focus, but just to give people a sense of who you are, Ashley is a local real estate agent based in Newton. She is a sales trainer, a national speaker, and an author of a brand new book called Move Over Extroverts. So congratulations to you on the new book. Really excited to have you on and would love to hear more about what you do. But before we do that, we always like to ask our guests, what's one cool networking event you've been to recently?
Well, that's an easy question. And also thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. This morning, I attended an event with the Charles River Chamber, and it was cool because we got to hear from one of our congresspeople and also our governor. So we got a little economic update.
Yeah, I somehow missed that one, but I'm seeing it all over my LinkedIn feed. So it like it was a good event.
But the cool thing was about that one is I saw a couple people I hadn't seen in a long time. So it ended up being great for networking. One guy, I haven't seen him in over 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool. That is one of the cool things I feel about, sort of like this networking world. You start to get to the point where you're just seeing people that you have, over and over again. And it's always cool to kind of make connections and friends. So Ashley, we're going to definitely have a lot of questions for you about, this whole idea of moving over extroverts and networking for introverts. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so my day job, as I like to say, even though it's residential real estate, so it doesn't always fit in the confines of a day job. So I've been a realtor for the past almost 12 years. Oh, wow. And working with buyers and sellers and investors, flippers, all the things. So that's what I do for, the most part. And then I also do some coaching and speaking and helping other agents build their businesses. And I do that across the country. So that's been a really fun kind of side hustle.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Taylor. Looks like you had a question.
Oh, so that's incredible. I think being able to give back to those after, having experiences is a great way for mentorship. So that's very incredible.
Thank you.
So Ashley, tell us a little bit about this whole idea, because I think, the first time I met you at a Charles River Chamber event, you talked about this whole idea of moving over extroverts. I think you had just started working on your book at that point or whatever, but it seems like you've been doing this actually for a while. How did you get sort of interested in this particular topic?
Well, my real estate business had been going well, and I had a real estate coach who was helping me, and he was like, okay, you've kind of hit this plateau and you seem a little bored. What's next? And for most agents, when they hit a certain level of success, they start hiring other people and building out a team. And I knew that was not my path, not for me. No, thank you. But I had always loved teaching classes just in my little office and helping the newbies. And so I was probably about 6 years into my career at this point. And I said, you know what? I think I want to coach and train and teach classes and help other agents. And he's like, okay, great. Everyone does that. So what can be different about you? And immediately I thought I can help my fellow introverts, because I knew that I was an introvert. I had read Quiet by Susan Cain, and I just was like, there's this disconnect in the real estate training space, and there aren't any classes for people like me. I had to go find my own path, and it was more difficult than it needed to be. So that's how I got into this.
That's very cool. Go ahead, Taylor.
I was going to say, just out of curiosity, what was that path, Ashley? You said that it was harder than it needed to be. Was there anything that really stood out that either you were being trained or communicated that you just didn't really resonate with, that made you think that, wow, there's a really big gap in the market here?
Yeah, back then, and it's gotten a lot better now, but back then there was a lot of pressure to be on the phone, cold calling, and just approaching strangers. And I think that's true across many industries. pick up the phone book and just start calling and hustle, hustle, hustle. And it's like, yes, that can work, but there are also all these other things that also work and don't make you miserable.
Yeah. I love that you brought up cold calling too, because I think that there's a statistic that it's like less than 5% chance that you'll close a deal from a cold call. Mm-hmm. If you get a referral from like already a customer, it's like a 50-50. But if you get a referral from a trusted advisor, so someone who understands the business, understands your business, and then makes that recommendation, it's like an 80% close rate. So, I think to your point, when you start with networking, it's working smarter, not harder in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ashley, what, if, as you think about your own path and so forth, what is the most important advice that you got? And what's the most important advice that you feel like you give now to people who are just starting out as introverts in that realty space or just in the networking space in general?
I think across the board, the best advice I received was to model my business structure over someone who I wanted their life and not just their business. That makes a big difference. There's a lot of people who have these crazy businesses and they're doing a lot of volume, but they're not super profitable and they have no free time.
Yeah.
How does one do that? What does that look like?
It's being very selective in who your mentors are, either directly or indirectly. We can have mentors who we've never met before, but we're watching what they're doing. And so because now there are all these different paths, just pick the one that looks the most fun. That's what I advise people to do as they're building their business. Pick the one that seems the most fun, and then you're more likely to stick with it.
Absolutely.
So as you're thinking through I was just going to say, Ashley, so as you're thinking through kind of what you do, on the introverted side, how do you prepare for networking meetings differently than your extrovert companion, for example?
So I don't do a lot of preparation in the beginning. Like I don't need a lot to go into it, but the preparation comes in how I schedule it. So I know that I'm going to be depleted afterwards, no matter what the event is. And especially if it's a good event and it's fun and I end up staying for the whole thing, I'm going to be more depleted, which is kind of counterintuitive. So I have to be really careful in my scheduling and make sure that after an event, I still have energy left. And if I know that I won't, I'm not planning anything else after.
So strategic time management. And I want to take this a step back because I'm so curious. When I think of a realtor, I think of some of the most outgoing and extroverted people I know. So what made you, as somebody who identifies as an introvert, what made you say real estate is something that I want to dive into and really get and make a career out of?
The real estate piece came way before I learned I was an introvert.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had no idea that this was even a thing. But I had gotten into I'd always wanted to be in real estate, and just the timing in my life was right in 2013. So I made the jump and I was burning myself out. I was doing all these things. I was cold calling for a couple hours every morning and then going to networking events in the afternoons and evenings and doing all of it. And I wasn't managing my energy because I didn't know how to. I didn't know I needed to. So I was burning out. And then eventually when I learned about, I'm actually an introvert and this is important. And then I started being more strategic in my time management, and that changed everything. And I stopped cold calling.
Yeah, get out of cold calling. I shouldn't say that.
What works better than cold calling? Obviously for you, I mean, for some people maybe cold calling works, but what do you find works the best for you?
For me, networking. And that can take a lot of forms. It's not just the networking groups, but it's also planning client events and planning. So my book launch party, I just solidified the date for that and sent out an email blast to my whole network, agents and otherwise. Basically everyone I've ever met is invited to this thing. And I'm like, this is a good reason to just keep in touch and see people I haven't seen in forever.
Absolutely.
And
Well, go ahead.
I'm just curious, when you changed your approach, once you figured out you were an introvert and you changed maybe I should just read your book. But when you figured out you're that introvert and you started to change your style and your approach, how did that really impact your networking and your business?
I was able to focus more on the networking piece and really go all in on that, because I gave myself permission to let go of cold calling. So that freed up a lot of time and a lot of energy. So I was able to do more in my sphere and building that up, building my relationships. And it was more sustainable because I was no longer burning myself out all the time.
Yeah.
I guess for those of us who maybe find ourselves more on the extroverted spectrum, what would you see as some of the most common misconceptions around introverts?
One of them is that we're not social at all.
Yeah.
So because I've built this brand around a very specific thing, people are often surprised that I have any social skills at all. They're like, "Oh man," and they mean it as a compliment. They're like, "Wow, you're good at talking to other people." No, I'm gonna need a nap after this, but. So that's a very common misconception, that we're just completely inept when it comes to socializing, or that we hate it. And that's not true. I really enjoy it. I need to do it in piecemeal.
Absolutely. I saw something online where introverts are a little bit more aware of their surroundings and aware of not only their I guess EQ, but other people's as well. So oftentimes what drains an introvert's battery is interacting with people who aren't aware of their own EQ. And so it's curious. It sounds like that's a little bit of what people are getting at when they say that to you, but
yeah, it could be. And it is an awareness, and we're much more internal processors. I have a great example. So I'm very much an internal processor. I have to work through things with a piece of paper or a whiteboard or something and not talk it through at all. And my boyfriend, who I live with, he's also in real estate. So we do a lot of business development together. And he is the complete opposite. He is a massive extrovert. I actually had him write my foreword for the book because I thought it would be a good perspective.
Oh, that's awesome.
He is an external processor. So when we're working through business ideas, he will do 95% of the talking. And sometimes we'll go on these walks and talk. And if it's a couple hours of him just talking at me, and I care about everything he's saying, and I can feel it draining me a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's aware of it too at this point. So yeah. Like, you look like you need to go home and take a nap. I'm like, oh, I do. But I appreciate like holding the space for you to talk this out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so what is it are there things that you've found that, I think you're sort of starting to get at this, but are there things that you've found that introverts are actually better at when it comes to networking?
Yeah, and I'm always cautious having this conversation because I don't want to offend my extroverted friends. This is not to say that you guys are not good at these things, but introverts do have a natural superpower when it comes to going deeper, faster in their relationship building. We like our one-on-ones. We really don't like small talk. So we can build relationships a little bit faster, usually.
Interesting.
Maybe that's why we have so many introverts on this podcast.
I also feel like I've heard that people, say that like introverts have another superpower, which is listening. Do you find that that's true as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Listening and asking good questions.
And
which is the key to sales, right? So
yeah, active listening.
Yep.
Now, I'm curious, as an introvert, or I guess not even as an introvert, just in general, what types of networking events are your favorite, Ben? Because I feel like there's so many different formats of networking events, and there's definitely some events that are a little bit more catered to an introvert versus an extrovert, and vice versa.
It's a good question. There's so many variables. I like a business expo. I like being able to pick and choose who I talk to and know going in what I'm getting into, because there's a booth set up with a company name. So I can say, you know what, I can be really targeted and that way you don't get in a conversation with someone and then find out that it's just, you don't mesh well, or there's no way you can really help each other or whatever. You can be a little bit more purposeful in where you're spending your energy.
Yeah.
So an expo is good, but anything with like good food and drinks and that I can escape from whenever I want.
Yeah.
Say the
There you
food
go.
table and beverage table is always a nice escape, because I would say, Ashley, I'm I don't know which way it is, but like an introverted extrovert, where I get my battery, my cup filled very much by being around people, but it is also very much depleted once I'm gone. Then I'm like, whew. So I agree with you. I have these like little escape routes. So like when I need a second to myself to recharge a little bit, it's helpful. So those are definitely mine too. And I'm sure, you know, when you look back and then to what's being currently done in your business, you ex-nade cold calling and now being more strategic with the one-on-ones, networking. Have you seen an increase in overall your business, but then also probably maybe attitude or, you know, like in what you're doing as a whole? Like, what do those differences look like?
Oh yeah, everything got better. My business increased a lot. I was happier. I was less stressed out. I was enjoying what I was doing, so I was doing more of it. It was just, and a big piece of networking, I'm glad you mentioned one-on-ones. Like that's huge for me is setting up. I use a networking event as a pool almost to pull a couple people from, and then build relationships with those people and not try to have 100 new best friends. That's an introvert's worst nightmare.
That's strategy right there. That's exactly what I do. Is I use the networking events. Like one, I think education's huge, whether it's just, you know, chatting different conversations or there's a panel to take away from. But you sales in my mind is, are you able to get that second meeting because you were able to connect on some level? And that second meeting, you're able to your point, dive deeper in that relationship, active listening, understands, you know, their tics and their wants and their gaps and their strengths and all of that stuff. And then it keeps growing from there. I think, I mean, I'm sure we've all been to those hundreds of folks at one event, and it's impossible to sometimes even hear, but talk to that many people. That one-on-one is so nice because it's a little bit more of a calmer environment and you're able to, again, have that deeper level, deeper connection.
I think it's interesting for me because I certainly like both. I enjoy the larger chaotic type events, and I'm not usually tired from them. I'm saying when is the next one immediately after, or whatever comes from it. But then I guess I also very much value the one-on-one. So it's interesting to me. I don't know, maybe I'm an anomaly, who knows? But
I think one-on-ones are important no matter who you are networking. But I think introverts probably thrive a little bit more on getting those one-on-ones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're
I mean,
less training than a huge loud event.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And
I also think that's sort of the goal, right? The goal is to get, how do I get, you know, I'm trying to make connections at an event so that I can get to the one-on-ones, because you don't typically get business just by like randomly talking to people. You know, it's what you're aiming for. Well, Ashley, I want to make sure we have some time to talk about your book. As a fellow author, I am, you know, a huge fan of when people write books and so forth. So I would love to hear what was your sort of journey of deciding to write a book, and tell us a little bit about kind of that and what you've got planned for it, and would love to hear about your book.
Thank you. Well, it's been in my mind for about 6 years, more than 6 years. And it's basically all of my classes that I teach distilled into a book. I did pull inspiration and quotes and stories from other agents that I know. I actually had a friend of mine contribute an entire chapter for the operations side of things. So like people in real estate administration. But at the end of 2023, I was just kind of on this treadmill and wanted something. I wanted a new project. So I decided in January of 2024, okay, this is finally the year I'm going to write the book. So I went and researched publishing, and my niche is way too small for any of the big publishers. So I found a little hybrid publisher, and it took about a year to write it, just nights and weekends, banging it out. And so it coincides with a lot of the speaking that I already do and the coaching I do for my fellow agents. I would love to eventually, the big dream is to have different versions of it, like the Chicken Soup book or the Miracle Morning, for different industries.
Yeah.
That's clever. I like
a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of the principles are not real estate specific. That's just examples.
That's great. Well, I love that. And I think, there's this, when I was writing my book, I came across this person who she would talk about, sort of your book as your big business card. And so I think it's really a cool tool, not just for, hopefully, it'll sell tons of copies, but in addition to that, you have this thing now that you can use to go and have a conversation with people, or when you're teaching your classes and be like, hey, there's this book and so forth. I think it's really it's a great tool. So it's very I love meeting other authors, because it's just like a rite of passage, right?
It is. It's like a weird little club.
Yeah. So, but super fun. Well, so you mentioned that that you have a book launch event coming up. That's exciting. Do you have other events coming up that are sort of open to the public, or do you have anything that you're going to be doing in the near future where people can experience you and your book?
I will be planning more seller seminars, both in person and virtual. I don't have dates yet, but the plan is to do a couple more of those throughout the year. And that will be like very educational, how to prep your home for sale, that sort of thing.
Very cool.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for those.
Awesome.
Well, so I sort of asked you this question before, but I'm really interested in how, if you were to meet yourself, like whatever it was, back in, I think you said 2013, when you were starting to be a realtor, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say, don't try to do everything. Pick 2 or 3 strategies for finding clients that sound at least not terrible. They don't have to sound super fun, but kind of fun. And just go all in on those for a good year, and then make tweaks from there. And don't worry about cold calling. Like, there was a lot of guilt that came with letting that piece go.
Interesting.
I think that guilt came from the status quo. Other folks are doing it, so I should. I really resonate with that a lot, because I think in a world that, again, a lot of people think that cold calling is definitely the way to go, but I think being able to be strategic, and whether it's LinkedIn messaging or going to events and setting those coffees, listen, some different things work for other people, but you're able to see a big ROI on the events and then the in-person one-on-ones. And I think that's a testament of your strategy and who you are too, and what you bring to the table. I think when you're in a sales type of role, which sales is so broad, right? Anyone can be in sales and not have a sales title, but it's what is unique and authentic to yourself, and how can you best connect and tell a story to other, individuals.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess, Ashley, just thinking through kind of your trajectory, right? Obviously, it's changed from, I guess, some cold calls to no cold calls and other things in between. Like, where do you see most of your business coming from now? Is it word of mouth? Is it from these networking events or something else? And how has that kind of evolved over the last 12 years?
It's a combo of my current sphere, which I built from scratch through networking, because I wasn't born here. So I came over from Michigan and had to build up a network. So it's a combination of that. People I already know, meeting new people through networking events. One thing that's changed a lot is social media. That has become a good tool, as much as I know plenty of other introverts who hate social media, and I'm not a huge fan. It's a great free tool for keeping in touch and staying top of mind. So I've found ways to make it less cringy for myself.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley, as promised, we have flown through most of the half an hour already. And so we like to leave a couple minutes at the end to kind of go around the group and as a wrap up and just share what is one cool networking event that you'll be going to in the next week or so, or, in the near future. And so we always like to let our guests start. So what's one cool event that you'll be going to soon?
I think it's next week. Don't quote me. It might be this week. I have to look at the calendar. The Corridor 9 Chamber, which is out in like the Westboro, Southboro area. They're doing their annual business expo. So that's why that's top of mind. I'm excited about that. And it's free.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's on Thursday, right, Ashley?
Is that this week on Thursday?
I think it might be because I had a conflict. Actually, something that I'm helping the others promote, but I think it might be. Because I was like,
might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just saying, wait a minute.
And then before I'll jump in with mine right now, but before I do that, Ashley, what is the best place for people to find you and connect with you?
So my website, moveoverextroverts.com, everything's on there, and you can reach out to me through the contact form and we can keep in touch.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will say, I don't know, it's a super busy networking week for me. So this evening I'm going to the Connects e-commerce has an event every couple of months or so, I think, over at the Waltham Crafts Food Hall. So I'm going there tonight. I think I'm going to see Steven there. And then I basically have something every night this week, but since I only got to share one, I'm going to pass it along to whoever wants to go next. I don't know, Taylor.
Yes, I have a couple too this week. Very busy. I'm looking forward to all the events. But Ashley, to your point, Friday will be very much unwinding, unpacking everything. But Wednesday is one of a couple of crew events that I'm going to. But I'm excited about this one the most. It's an introduction to the new Massachusetts climate law. We're having Michael Judge at Turner Construction. So I also love a breakfast morning networking event. Which is, it's always good. People are starting to wake up, have the coffees, good conversations. So I'll be there on Wednesday morning. What about you, Amelia?
I am actually I don't have a ton of events this week, but one event I'm really excited about is Portal Innovation. So they're a new incubator out of the Boston Globe, the old Boston Globe building. So anyone who's local to the Boston area, I actually got like field trips through the Boston Globe building as a kid. So I think I'm really excited to go to this building and see how they've turned it into an incubator. But they're launching a new network type program through their event, through their platform and through their space. So I'm really excited to go see how the new building turned out.
Cool. Steven?
Well, obviously, Jeff, we'll see you tonight. For the Wicked Connected folks, we'll see you tomorrow night.
That's right.
And I have a wine and food dinner Wednesday night, which will be fun. But I guess there is a Minced Leaven Strategies meeting. I think it's tomorrow at noon. And it is one of the key folks from Canada who's actually going to be there speaking. A lot of times it's somebody from a political background, whether it be a former senator or congressperson or whatever it is. And this time, it is one of the key folks from Canada. So really interested in hearing what that conversation is. And we'll go from there.
Awesome. Sounds like a busy week for everyone. Ashley, thank you so much. Really appreciate having you on, your message. Really excited about your book. And we will see everyone next week.
Great. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.